This plant has been growing in my classroom for years, like 15 years. And it is a green peromia. But what happens with it is it has these branches that droop down like this, and they just keep going and going and going. So when they become annoying, when the plant is just too large, I just cut these branches off right above a leaf, like maybe right there. Then I put them in water, and once they have some roots, I put them into soil, and we get nice new little plants from this. There's a number of plants you can propagate this way. All of your succulents will do similar things. So I can just pull off this little tip, this little branch, turn it around, stick it in the dirt, and I've done that here. I don't usually put those in water. I just put them in moist soil and they take root. And here's another one that was just getting unwieldy, kind of like this one. See how it's getting so big and sort of falling over? So what I do is, see how it's got a little baby coming up right there? So I just cut above that baby, this part, I can stick into another pot and it will look nice like this one as it's growing its roots. And then this little bitty branch, this little bitty sprout right here will get all the root feeding it, and it will grow pretty quickly into a new piece of plant. So I got this kind of unwieldy succulent group from a parent, and I repotted it once into this bigger pot, but it's sort of outgrowing that pot. I also found out, just by doing the same exact thing, that you can also do the same thing with jade plants. So you know how you get these great big giant jade plants and they just keep getting taller and they'll grow into a giant tree if you let them. But if you have them in something like this, that's very shallow, eventually they're just gonna keep tipping it over, so you have to either repot it, or what I did, this extended on and on and on and on. It was covering my other plants and it was making it lean to the right and making it tip. So I just lopped that off and stuck it in some moist soil, and I now have a new little jade plant, which I took home, so I can't show it to you right now. But that these, I found out just by experimenting that these propagate very easily. So do these things. These guys, they're so cute, but then they become this giant thing that just is not so cute anymore. But if you lop off the top, then you can root that and make a new little plant, and where you've cut it off, see what happens? It branches out and you get more, it gets bushier. So I need to actually do that back closer to the base so that it's bushier closer to the base. You can also do this with mother-in-law tongue. I have this giant one I got in the 4th grade. Just like those kids taking home their little cups of basil, I took home a little cup with a little sprout of this in it, probably yay big, in the 4th grade. And I have now been teaching over 30 years. So that gives you an estimate of my age. Let's just say I'm north of 60. And this plant, I need to separate it. You can see it's very crowded in there. But I don't even know how many times I've done it. I have this plant in equal size pots all over my house. I've given it away. I have it, like I took some of them and stuck them in a pot over here in the corner of my classroom, and they just go crazy. This was, I don't know, maybe 3 that I rooted And now they're all super tall. This one is probably, this branch right here, this leaf is probably 5 feet tall. And you can see my one over there that I showed you before is really tall. So what I do is, especially if I have branches that fall out to the side, what happens is they grow long and then they poke the kids when they walk by. So I've got it turned right now so that there's none doing that, sticking out into the room, but you can see all these sticking out to this side over here. And what I do is I just cut them off close to the base. I just plop them into a vase of water and make sure that you keep water in there. And it takes a long time for these guys, but eventually you'll start to see root formation, and they will grow nice big roots just in water. And once they get a pretty good root system on them, I just put them into a pot of soil. So this one is a very tall leaf. He's probably 5 feet tall. And that was the one that I rooted. And then I put it into the soil, and you can see now it's got some little babies coming up. So it's liking its new home. So there are a number of plants that you can do this with. And when they get unwieldy, I just try it and see if it works. Now, sometimes it's a dismal failure, but sometimes it works. And with succulents, it always seems to work. These guys, a lot of times, if just a leaf, whoops, a leaf just fell off. If you just take a single leaf off of this, and they're falling off all the time, if you just pick it up and stick it in some soil, it grows into a plant. And that's how I got all of these, like this whole mess. I just had this tray from, I don't know, some kind of food, and I basically just threw a very thin layer of soil in there and some water, and I threw some leaves from that plant in there, and now I have these giant plants growing out of it on all sides. People come and pick it and start their own. I let the kids start their own. I've got a couple different varieties, I think, in there. This guy looks like he tore loose, so we'll just stick him back in there. You can basically do anything with these guys and they survive. And you can grow those into new plants. Now, they are very slow growing. This thing has been in here for probably 3 years, and I keep thinking I'll separate it and pot them and just never get around to it, and they've just survived where they are as best as they can. I had my students grow different types of basil from seed, so that they got the experience of planting and watching it grow, taking care of it. They can take it home soon. And when it gets tall like this, I taught them how to prune the plant so that it will start getting bushier and not just growing up in height. And so they learned how to cut just above 2 leaves like this, and then they took the little piece they cut off. That one is a large leaf basil, and they put them into little labeled cups like so that just contained water. And after several weeks, they've started to grow roots. We just plant them individually in these cups to give out to teachers, and they can replant them into larger containers as they grow. Here are their various clippings sitting in the windowsill. Some have done better than others about checking their water and keeping it topped off. Another thing you want to do if it starts to go to seed, like this one, you want to nip that little top off. There's a purple basil, needs its little top nipped off of there, because once they start putting their energy into making seeds, quite often the leaves become bitter, and also the plant thinks it's finished. If you keep nipping those off, you can keep growing new little plants, so you can keep your basil going indefinitely.